Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today we're sewing a trendy Milkmaid dress using my pattern Million Buttons. This is a great base for this type of dress. I will show you how to modify the bodice pattern. Also check out another hack of this pattern. I added short sleeves and a tiled skirt. You can find some tips in my Instagram if you are interested. So let's start. Here are my beautiful pattern pages. Link to the original pattern in the description. We should modify only 3 bodice pieces, the upper bodice piece, the lower bodice piece and the back. So I assembled the pages and cut out the pieces. Also I prepared for you a free slit skirt pattern. I think it would be a great addition to this hack. This is the neckline that we have to modify. I suggest you measure how much you would like your bust to be covered. You can make control marks with these measurements approximately here. I suggest raising the neckline by 4 cm for a sweetheart look. If you want a straight neckline, then raise it higher. I'm marking 2.5 cm on the armhole and connecting these marks. Let's call this new piece a bust piece. Now we have to make a new strap piece. I suggest making a 4 cm wide shoulder. I'm marking 5 cm on the new line and connecting these marks. You can check this width, measuring yourself. This is where opening and ties will go. I'm making 3 lines to slash and spread the bust piece on the top. To have a neater wrong side, I'm making this piece double. Also, we have to add 1 cm seam allowance at the bottom. You can make a dress without this piece with an elastic on a sleeve head, but I think this way is more high-end looking. Slash and spread the bust piece. I'm adding 4 cm between each piece. Make a lower line smooth. Add about 1 cm seam allowance to the top. Also, we should save the notches from the underbust. This is our bust piece, which will be gathered. Let's modify the back piece. First of all, there won't be a fold anymore. We should add 1 cm seam allowance for a zipper. Also, we should modify the neckline because we have a new shoulder. Mark the shoulder length and draw a new smooth neckline. Let's cut the pieces. I'm using viscose fabric, so I'm starting with a strap piece. We should cut this piece on the fold. I'm interfacing a piece of fabric that the strap won't stretch. I'm folding it twice and then put a pattern piece on this fold. Remember to cut 2 pieces. You can see detailed instructions on how I sew cuffs in the original video tutorial of a million buttons dress. In this hack, we also should reinforce the underbust line with a notch stretch stay tape. So all the pieces are cut and prepared. I use the same sleeve and cuff from the original pattern. This is how the bodice pieces should look like. I added 1 cm seam allowance for zip closure on the center back. Also, I cut the skirt with a slit. The skirt pattern is absolutely free, see a link in the description. I'm starting with finishing the front bodice opening by folding it twice for approximately 5 mm. Set a stitch length to the longest. There are 2 methods how to finish the neckline. The first option is to finish it with a bias tape. For both methods, make 2 parallel stitch lines from notch to notch along the lower underbust edge. Leave thread tails at the beginning and the end of the stitch lines. For the first method, make parallel stitch lines also along the whole neckline. Gather by pulling 2 needle threads at the same time. We don't need so much volume on the side of the bust, so stopping on the underbust notch was a good idea. Make sure the bust gathered underbust line fit the lower bodice piece. Pin the bust piece to the lower piece like this, noting that the seam allowance is 1 cm, so we should leave it on the corner for the second piece. Pin the second side, making a corner that is equal to the seam allowance. Remove the large gathering stitches when finished. Clip the curved underbust seam allowance on both sides every 2 cm. Be careful not to cut through the stitch line. Finish the trim underbust seam allowance with an overlocker, working with the gathered upper piece facing up. Tie the overlock chain threads on the center in a knot. Fold the corner to make it lay flat for a top stitching. Top stitch 1 mm from the edge. Put the underbust seam allowance towards the lower piece. Press this seam. Cut bias tape from your fabric. Finish the neckline with a bias tape like you usually do, continue unfolding and top stitching the same tapes as ties on the center. The second option is to make a drawstring. For this method, we don't need a gathering along the neckline anymore. But I recommend not skipping gathering before making a drawstring anyway. Make a fitting and see how you like a neckline shape. So finish the upper neckline edge with an overlocker. Tie the overlock thread chains. Fold 7 to 10 mm toward the wrong side and stitch along the fold. Press these folds. Now it's time to make tie strings. I'm cutting 2 cm wide strips. I recommend attaching them together on bias. This makes a seam less visible. Now press the seams open and trim unnecessary tails. I have folded and ironed 5 mm from both sides, and now I'm going to fold it one more time and top stitch along the edge. Iron the string well. Put a safety pin and insert the string from the center openings. When the string is in, make stitches along a side opening. I've already prepared the back pieces. I stitched the dots, finished the back center edges, and finished the neckline with the bias binding. Let's attach the strap pieces to the neckline. This is the same principle as the original pattern has. We sandwich the back shoulder in the front piece. It's easier to sew together only 2 layers first. This method makes the wrong side so neat. Now sew the side seams, finish with the overlocker and press. Finish these edges with an overlocker. Tie the threads into knots. Make the gathering even on the whole neckline. Attaching a strap will be very simple and it will look absolutely okay from the wrong side. Mark 1 cm and place the bust piece edge next to this mark. The strap should be next to the side seam. Tap stitch along the stitch you already have on the bust piece. Let's assemble the skirt. I'm starting with the center back seam, leaving a gap for a zipper. The edges are finished. We fold both skirt front edges with an iron, approximately 4 mm. I will show you an absolutely neatest way to finish the slit. Mark where a slit is going to start. Iron on interfacing patch to this area. Yes, I could make it before ironing the fold. Make it on the both front pieces. the front skirt pieces right sides together and sew with the 6mm seam allowance until the slit starts, ignoring the pre-ironed folds along the edge. And now just make the seam open and top stitch 5mm from the seam on the both seam allowance sides. Continue stitching and finish the slit edges with the same seam. Also make some perpendicular stitches on the slit start for more safety. This is so neat, isn't it? Sew the side seams, overlock the edges and press. Attach the skirt to the bodice. Finish the edge and press the waist seam towards the bodice. Now it's time to attach a zipper. I already have shown in detail how I install a zipper in my first video. You can watch it if you're interested. I make additional stitch lines along the zipper tail before the main attaching seam along the teeth. As the neckline is finished with bias, I'm just folding the zipper tail and I'm going to sew it like this. I'm sewing this tail left on the bottom to the center back seam allowances. Pre-fold the hem with an iron. My fold is 5mm. Finish the hem folding it one more time. Sometimes it's hard to make stitches at the very beginning, so I'm just pull threads a little bit to help the fabric to move. I've made the sleeves as the original pattern requires. The only modification I made was the sleeve opening on the center of the sleeve, not on the back. Make a gathering on the top of the sleeve head. and sew the sleeve in as we usually make it. Mark button placement dots on the cuff for the button loops and attach the buttons. Finally, the dress is ready. I will be glad to see your makes on Instagram with the hashtag #MillionButtonsDress. Thank you for watching. See you soon.
Baby.